Never before has an Israeli president assumed the importance that Chaim Herzog has today. Until now, the role of president in Israel was largely figurative. But with the country's political crisis still not resolved, Mr. Herzog has taken matters very much into his own hands these past few weeks, insisting that Israel's politicians bury their differences and unite in one government. The man from Ireland, who's now president, is in short the new power broker here. Chaim Herzog was born in Belfast in 1918 and grew up in Dublin, where his father was a rabbi. Today he still has a discernible Irish accent, and the memories of Dublin and the Republican War against the British are still firmly imprinted on his mind.
The first experience that I can ever remember in my life is seeing somebody being shot outside our house after Ireland became a free state. The impressions of those years remain with me right through, and they meant something to me when we were struggling here for independence.
Herzog sailed for Palestine as a teenager in 1935 and quickly enrolled in the Jewish underground, the Haganah.
I've been through all the wars here and actually fired my first shot in anger in my life as a young teenager during the Arab revolt at that time.
The British ruled Palestine in those days. For Herzog then it was a natural progression to Cambridge, followed by Sandhurst. As an intelligence officer in the British Army, he was one of the first to enter Hitler's concentration camps in the last year of the Second World War.
If it did anything to me, if it was possible at all to strengthen the feeling of Zionism that I had, to see this happening in a modern world today made me realize that we will never be free from this danger, as a minority, unless we have our own homeland, our own country.
Herzog was a general in the Israeli army, but it was as a radio commentator during the 1967 war that he made his name. He was the voice for the nation. Talking to him today at his office in Jerusalem, it's clear that he now sees a crisis comparable to the 1967 war, and he sees the same way out as Israel took then, a government of national unity.
This nation has always known how to get together and close ranks in the face of danger. This nation has also had an instinct to appreciate when real danger faces us. Most of the dangers that faced us were external, and we always came together as one man. And that's how the last national unity government was formed on the eve of the Six-Day War in 1967. The nation instinctively feels today that we're up against something very, very serious. And as one who represents a national consensus, hopefully, I feel that, because I'm in daily contact with the people here, and I feel it, that they are prepared to close ranks.
Are you prepared to step in and bang heads together?
Well, I have done so. I stepped in, I called the parties in an unprecedented move. It never happened before. In fact, I found myself in an unprecedented situation for a president. And I realized that I can't just sit back and say, all my predecessors had it very easy. There were always definite results in the elections. And there were no horns of any dilemma at the time.
You know the personalities involved. Do you really see the leaders of the two major parties coming together?
I am convinced that both sides can talk. I had them here, in this room, and they talked. And there was, I would say, as much degree of agreement as of disagreement. And the talks have gone on since then. Now they're still jockeying for power. It's the name of the game is politics. There's a lot of jockeying for power, but there is a realization that there's a limit to it this time because of the problems we face.
To the Arab world at large, Mr. Herzog has always appeared something of a hawk. Arab leaders remember him most clearly as Ambassador Herzog at the United Nations in 1975, when Arab countries had presented a resolution denouncing Zionism as racism. Ambassador Herzog's response spoke for itself.
For us, the Jewish people, this is no more than a piece of paper, and we shall treat it as such. Thank you, Mr. President.
Today that stridency is softened by a genuine belief in the peace process that began with Egypt in the late 1970s.
I would say that in principle, I wouldn't say that the danger from the Arab world has disappeared, but I would say we've passed a political watershed in the Middle East. The Arab world accepts Israel today. Whether they are willing to admit it or not is another matter, but they accept Israel.
You talk of the dangers. What are the dangers for Israel ahead? If the kind of polarization that you talk about continues, if the divisions within Israel continue?
Well, we've been through this before. 2,000 years ago, we had exactly this situation, 1,900 years ago, even in this city of Jerusalem. And we had divisions which became violent in the face of a Roman attack. And the net result was that the Romans then, we weakened ourselves so much that we were unable to withstand the Roman onslaught. This is the danger today. If we weaken ourselves internally and don't keep together, we are facing a threat from outside. The Gaddafis and the Assads haven't gone away, and the Khomeinis haven't gone away. They're all running around the Middle East today, and we cannot afford to lower our guard or weaken our defense. Once you have extreme polarization within a society, you are weakening yourself.
With the political crisis now almost a full-time occupation, President Herzog's one escape is the golf course. It's a sign of the man's determination that he's just taken up the game at the age of 66. That determination will almost certainly make the politicians, pursue his dream of a grand national coalition for several weeks more. And in the meantime, President Herzog remains for many Israelis the best hope the country has, not just of bringing the people together again, but of presenting an eminently acceptable face to the world outside, at a time when Israel's image abroad is, by common consensus here, so poor. David Smith, ATN, Israel.